Hello, everybody. Welcome to the last minute of play in the third period. This one's not sports related today. I want to talk about something else. Is freezing rain the worst kind of weather?
According to you, it is, for sure.
I think it's got to be up there.
What do you think is worse?
Hail. Well, full-on hail.
A hurricane, I guess?
Yeah, I'm not talking like natural disasters.
Okay.
I mean like regular, like everyday weather.
Okay.
I'd rather have a snowstorm.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, well, I was talking to Johnny about this before the show started. Snow is terrible. It's a terrible weather condition for driving. It slows everything down, but at least it's pretty.
Yeah, that's fair. And you can play in it.
Rain makes driving difficult, makes things slippery, but at least it's like sort of an enjoyable kind of weather phenomenon, and like especially after winter is over, it like washes away all the dirt and the sand and the salt and the grime and whatever. In like, in the middle of summer it's dusty, it does that too. It's like rain has like a functional... Freezing rain has none of that. It is the worst parts of snow and the worst parts of rain.
Yeah, and it's kind of a troll if you think about it, because like the wetness of it like washes away all the salt, and then as soon as it gets rid of all the negating factors of slippery roads, like, haha, your road and your car is covered in ice.
Welcome to your hometown. It is now secretly an ice rink.
Damn it, Kaylee.
I never missed a single one of those the entire time that we didn't record these for YouTube. Now that we vidcast these, I've missed the cue on the buzzer twice.
Yeah. You're getting a little bit of stage fright.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. You are listening to Overtime on CHSR-FM FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And of course watching the vidcast on YouTube, where you've watched me miss my horn cue for the second time in 11 recorded episodes for YouTube.
Something like
11,
that.
12.
11 or 12.
Something like that.
For anyone who's wondering, well, right now you won't be wondering because they'll be up by the time you see this on YouTube, but not the radio broadcast.
Probably.
We know about the backlog. All the video content's uploaded. We just need to finish a couple of things, and they'll all be available. So if you've missed the last couple and you want to know what happened, it's fine. Soon, the episode with Ryan's definitely worth a watch.
Yep, for sure. Anyways, what do we got to talk about today?
We have got to talk about the NBA trade deadline, which was wild.
Oh, yeah.
The NHL trade deadline, which is probably going to stink because all the trades happened on the NBA trade deadline. Yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
We have to talk about all of the new information we have about STFX and Acadia and the brawl that happened over the past weekend. And boy, there's a lot of stuff.
Yep.
We're going to talk about Austin Matthews re-signing a giant contract. Kawhi Leonard and Kyle Lowry are opponents at the All-Star game. That's going to be fun. Major League Baseball is doing some of its rule changes with service time and stuff. And TFC, this I don't think we're really going to touch on, but kind of news and notes. TFC signs Terrence Boyd. Was a U.S. national team player, was playing over in the Austrian Bundesliga, gets signed over by TFC. Not really a replacement for Giovinco.
No, I don't think you can replace Giovinco, but it helps mitigate it, and I think he's a good add to the team.
Anyway, this is going to be like a mostly hockey-themed episode by the looks of it, so let's just break right in. Do we want to start with AUS?
Yep.
Okay. So, for anybody who missed the show on Monday, or missed our post on Facebook, and also will be included with the YouTube vidcast when it goes up. So Acadia and STFX had a brawl on the weekend. Ended up, the final result of it was the suspension of 15 players. Was it 15 people or 15 players?
It was 9 players for X, 6 for Acadia.
So 15 players and both coaches.
And both coaches. 39 games worth of suspensions between the two teams. Possibly more, and we'll get into some of the details that might...
We'll get into the speculative details so far. But anyway, what happened was X player ends up... Or Acadia player ends up getting shoved into the X bench. There's a bit of an altercation. X player ends up sort of jumping the Acadia bench. Acadia sends a bunch of people onto the ice. They're the first ones off the bench. Mostly, as a point out, sort of coming to the defense of their team because they were down a couple players because of penalties. X leaves the bench. Bunch of guys get involved in a huge brawl. At the time, that was all we knew. We aired the show on Monday. We called them punks. We complained about Coach Brad Peddle, a coach that we have a lot of respect for. Backing up his boys, even though his team seemed to be clearly at fault for an unnecessary line brawl. And then Tuesday happened. And then we had to... The results of the suspensions came down, and everything seemed to sort of line up. Then we found out that there was another piece of information, and then today we finally got confirmation on something else that happened. Literally 2 hours ago, CBC officially broke the story. We got a thing via Twitter. John,
Yeah.
you got a thing via Twitter.
If you want to follow the closest on this the whole investigation and everything that's been happening, at Finder_24, Victor Finlay, insider for U Sports Hockey, and he's been I've pretty much just had his notifications on all week and getting all the updates from him and everything. He's got a really good breakdown, talking to a lot of sources, and that's where I got the statement that came straight from Acadia's athletics communications.
I just thought about this. We should have shot Vic a message because we met him in March.
Yeah, for sure. We should almost if we could have, we should have had him on, even just to call him to get a little bit more information or something like that.
Yeah, we should actually. You want to know? It's weird talking production stuff on air. We should shoot him a message now and see if we can get him on after all the dust is settled.
Absolutely.
Kind of get his take on everything that happened. Long story short, on Tuesday, suspensions come down. We'll go through the suspensions really quickly. Rodney Southam gets 2 games for causing a subsequent fight. Owen McDonald and Ross McDougall both get 2 games for leaving the bench during a fight. TJ Fergus gets 2 games for having a bench interference game misconduct. Cole Reginado is the big loser for the X-Men. He gets 4 games, 2 for leaving the bench during a fight, 2 for a subsequent fight for 4 games total. Locke Morrison got 2 games for throwing his stick, and Coach Darren Burns got 1 game for the game misconduct, and then another game for having having a member of his team be the first player to leave the bench during the brawl. If you go to the X-Men, the list a little bit longer. Regan Spears got 1 game for instigating a fight, 1 game for fighting for 2 games. Sam Studnicka got 2 games for a subsequent fight. William Thompson got 2 games for a subsequent fight. Nathan Pansel, Mark Tremaine, William Bauer, Bailey Webster, and Cole McDonald all got 2 games for leaving the bench during a fight. Coach Brad Peddle got 1 game for a game misconduct, a second game because it was his second game misconduct this season for 2 games total. And then the big loser for the X-Men was Aaron Hoyles. Hoyles got 2 games for leaving the bench during a fight, 2 for being the third man into a fight, and a game for his second game misconduct this season for 5 games total. As we sort of noted before, they technically went light on Hoyles because he should have gotten 1 for the misconduct and then 1 for it being his second misconduct of the season.
Yeah, that's true.
So he should have gotten 6. But we are speculating that the reason why it's only 5 is because 5 games means he misses an entire playoff series.
Yeah. So with all the Acadia suspensions, you can take 1 off with the remaining because they did play on Wednesday and somehow managed to beat St. Mary's 4-3. I don't know how you do that without a whole line missing and your coach as well. But
when you beat the second place team in the league because it's AUS and nobody cares.
Yeah. So So that leaves.
SMU had nothing to play for. They'd locked up a bye and they weren't catching UNB. So
yeah, that's fair. So what's the longest suspension on Acadia for?
Reginado got 4.
Got 4. So he will miss Acadia.
Their last regular season game and the first 2 games of their first round playoff series.
Okay. So which potentially his season could be done if they get swept.
Yeah.
Because it's
best of 3.
It's best of 3.
The second round series are best of 5, which is why I'm surprised that Hoyle's suspension wasn't the full 6. Because if X wins their first round series, sweeps it, he's only gone for the first game of the second round. But making it to the second round, the suspension matters a little less because the 5 games, the math kind of works kind of funky.
Yeah. So he has the 5-game suspension.
Yeah.
So he will miss their game against UNB tonight, their game against UPEI on Saturday, which means 4. So potentially the season could be done.
He'll have 3 more games remaining.
Yeah.
So he'll miss his entire first round series. If X sweeps that series, he'll miss the first game of the second round series. My question is, and this is where I kind of wish we had Vic on because I know that he would know the answer to this. If Hoyles has another year of eligibility and X gets swept, does he still have a game suspension that carries over to next season?
I would imagine.
Yeah,
so.
I would.
That's the way
I'm assuming so because that's how most leagues work. But I don't know if that's true for AUS because of limited eligibility.
Yeah, who knows?
No, I think that is the rule.
Yeah,
But
I imagine.
Yeah. It's a pretty general rule across all leagues. It's pretty generic.
But yeah, I think we should I'll make a note and I'll reach out to Vic to see if he would be available maybe sometime to get on about this. So it'd be good to have.
So if you take from that, so we're going to follow the timeline as we understood it. Make our comments on Monday. Tuesday, this information gets released. A couple hours after all the suspensions are announced, STFX makes a statement. Statement is, Johnny, I mean, you can. I don't know if you want to quote stuff verbatim or if you just want to tell people.
I can read it because they're relatively short and shouldn't take me long to get through. I just have to find them. So there was a statement from Peddle, there was a statement from Stadnica, and then there was a responding
Hold on.
From
first two from X. We're following the timeline as we got the timeline.
Yeah, okay.
So we're going to start with STFX.
Okay, so from STFX, do you want me to start with Peddle or Stadnica?
I'd start with Peddle.
Peddle. So this is verbatim coming from the X-Men Athletics Communications Department. After 14 years of coaching at the university level, I do not condone fighting in our league, and I completely understand that fighting is not a part of our game. What I do understand and support completely is the actions of my student athletes and how they chose to stand up for their teammate on an issue that is more important than winning a hockey game. It is a testament to the character and integrity of the student athletes in our locker room. I feel this incident was very avoidable based upon our repeated discussions about the situation. Supporting Sam has always been the top priority. In this specific instance, our team took a stand to protect him from repeated unnecessary insults that have no place in the sport or the greater society. And that's from Brad Peddle, verbatim statement there.
So that's Peddle's statement, and Peddle's statement sort of leaves out something now. Peddle says that the team came to the defense of Sam Stadnica, who is the person who made our other statement, and this is why that's relevant.
Okay. Over the course of my 3-year AUS career, I've been challenged in dealing with insulting and derogatory comments on the ice pertaining to the shaming of a sexual assault survivor. It has taken an emotional toll on me, and it has been frustrating that one AUS hockey program in particular has elicited repeated on-ice comments directed towards me. Another comment was made during the third period of Saturday night's game, which was addressed by my head coach to the on-ice officials in the opposing team's head coach. He was completely shocked when minutes later I was on the ice and the offending athlete who made the comment was sent to take the face-off against me. There is no place for such comments within our society. So sexual assault is a very serious issue, and there is simply no place for shaming sexual assault survivors ever. I am proud of the way my teammates stood up for me and showed something bigger than hockey. This event shows that more education is still needed on this issue. It is a serious societal issue, and we need more awareness and education on all levels so young men are aware of the implications of the words and actions. And that is from Sam Stadnica, STFX forward.
So we don't have any context for who Stadnica has a personal relationship with that is a sexual assault survivor. We're not going to speculate. It's none of our business. Mm-hmm. The point is, a member of the Acadia team made a derogatory comment towards Stadnica. We'll get to what the comment was momentarily because we didn't exactly know what was said until the release for today. So that information comes out. AUS essentially says they're going to do a second stage of...
Yeah. Do you want me to read the Acadia statement as well?
Okay. AUS announced they're going to do a second stage of investigation into it because obviously the allegations made by STFX are pretty severe. Acadia comes up with a formal statement.
Okay.
You can read it out if you want to.
Yep. This is statement from Acadia X-Men's Athletic Communications Department. During the third period of the February 2nd, 2019 hockey game between the Acadia University X-Men and St. Francis Xavier University X-Men, an incident occurred involving an X-Men student athlete and members of the X-Men. Yesterday, we began an investigation regarding the validity of the insinuations made being made about this incident. We have been in contact with the AUS office throughout the day today, and the information we have gathered is not consistent with the allegations contained in the statements made this evening publicly by STFX. We are also participating in the review being conducted by AUS of events that occurred at the Acadia bench at 9:05 of the game's third period. Acadia considers the on and off ice behavior that occurred at that time unacceptable on numerous levels and will be cooperating fully with the AUS investigation. Acadia will not comment further on either of these matters because we do not wish to prejudice the AUS investigation, and that is coming from Kevin Dickey, the Executive Director of Varsity Athletics for Acadia.
Okay, so Acadia comes out and says that nothing from their internal investigation is consistent with what they're being accused of by STFX. We made the conscious decision to formally come out and say, given the severity of the issue, that we wanted to apologize for comments that we had made questioning Brad Peddle's integrity on Monday.
Yeah, we were just too passive with it because we just thought it was kind of like a deep, like, okay, it's a brawl, like, it doesn't happen as much in other,
almost never in AUS.
Yeah, and like even in other forms of hockey nowadays. But like we just thought it was like stupidness and like red misting on both sides. So we didn't have the context of like the comments that were made and everything like that. So we just thought that like basically like coaches and people involved were kind of posturing and everything like that for their team's actions.
We saw the phone video of Peddle telling Acadia to control their players when the X-Men seemed to be the ones who instigated the fight.
Yeah.
And we very much said that it felt like he was doing what a coach was expected to do instead of being like, an upstanding. Well, to be fair, we didn't really knock his character directly, but we sort of said that, in a case like that, you should admit that your team's at fault. And sort of implied that maybe we had less respect for him now because he didn't. And
just basically like call him out, like we thought he was being a little bit hypocritical by saying that to the Acadia bench when it was his player who jumped the Acadia bench. But obviously there was a key piece of information missing, and again, we apologize for not considering that. But now that we have everything, so we should keep going with the timeline.
Yeah, so that gets us to Acadia played a game last night.
Yes. Yeah.
Which was the first game knocked off of most of their suspensions. Yeah. News comes out this morning, officially posted by CBC at 6:34 a.m. Atlantic time.
Yeah, the statement from Acadia that I'll read shortly, or I'll read parts of shortly, came out at midnight last night.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why they picked up the story so quickly.
So that's why they picked up the story this morning.
Yeah.
So essentially what happened was Rodney Southam, who you might have heard his name earlier amongst the suspensions for Acadia, came forward and admitted that he was the one who said the inflammatory thing. He and Sam Studnicka essentially were tied up. Studnicka was spraying water on him while he was stuck between a lineman and an X-Men player, or the X-Men bench.
You want me I'll read the part where he talks about the actual incident itself within the game. Like, I won't read the full statement. It's a little bit too long for the time that we have.
Yeah.
But I'll just read that part, and you can go to, again, at Finder _24. That's FINDER _24. Victor Finlay has the full, like, the screen cap and everything on his Twitter. I highly encourage you go and read the full thing to get Southern's kind of context on the whole situation as well. But I'll read the important thing here. I'll start here. There's more that you need to know about me. When I was a junior hockey player and a minor, I was accused of sexual assault, something I did not do. After more than a year of tremendous stress on me and my family, seemingly endless meetings with lawyers and dealing with the legal process, the allegations against me did not proceed. Unfortunately, I carry these allegations with me, and they are well known in my hockey circles. And in every game in which I played, my opponents used to taunt or chirp me while calling me a rapist. Almost every single day. To this day, I think about what I went through because the taunts I endured are never far below the surface and always in the back of my mind. That's why I think I said what I said in the heat of the moment on Saturday. I do know I wish to take that word back, and I should have known better. There are other things people should know during Saturday's game. It was the usual high-intensity game against a highly skilled team. With about 12 minutes remaining in the third period, Acadia took a penalty which stopped play. On my way back to the benches, I got tangled up with the captain of the X-Men. While the linesman was trying to intervene, I was pushed through an open door into the X-Men bench. While this was happening, I turned around to see Sam Stadnicka spraying me up and down the back with a bottle of water as I was stuck between a player and a linesman. I turned around and we started exchanging words back and forth. In the heat of a moment, I singled him out, saying, "You look like a little bleeping expletive rapist." This is information I supplied to AUS Executive Director Phil Curry on Monday as a part of what I understood to be a confidential investigation into the incidents.
I think we can kind of cut it there.
Yeah.
So essentially, Southern makes this statement. X responds to it very negatively because Southern said this himself later on in that same speech. He did not know that Stadnicka had personal history related to this issue.
And that's the key thing is, like, it doesn't, like...
It does not absolve Southern.
It does not absolve Southern because, like, you shouldn't be saying, like, that's... Like,
you've crossed the line already.
There's messed up things said back and forth. Anyone who's watched documentaries like 24/7 with like the NHL players are mic'd up on the ice, there are mean things said back and forth. But even with that being known, there's a line you don't cross, and that is one of them. But we have to consider now that absolve the malicious intent behind targeting a specific known sexual assault survivor related to Sam Stadnicka directly. It was more of a general, like, heat of the moment, what's the worst thing I can say, and he said it, not attacking a personal relationship to Stadnicka.
Now, of course, STFX took it way more personally than that. Because,
absolutely.
Because, and this thing, Southern, for the record, very even keel in his speech, although I find him mentioning his own history of being accused of sexual assault a little patronizing, personally.
A little bit, but he wants to. I think he just wanted to give context and everything.
I understand.
Which is important. It's needed in a situation like this.
But what's happening here is he pointed out that people who knew Sam from the East Coast, because Sam played his entire hockey career all the way through being a prospect and everything here in Atlantic Canada, probably know his history, to probably know who this person is. We do not, because we haven't tracked Sam as a hockey prospect. None of us have any real tenable connection to him as a person. But it's admitted that anybody who does have a tenable connection to that team probably knows what's going on. But Rodney Southern played all of his hockey in Western Canada. And, he was captain of the Kelowna Rockets and played like a big WHL career before finally coming out east to do his college career at Acadia. So he had no idea when he made that comment.
Yeah.
Does that make him less at fault for what happened?
No.
Like a tad, but not much.
I don't think it does, though.
Anyway, so that's the news up to this point. I'm glad Sean chimed in with that, because that's where I think we should start this is, okay, with all the information that we have, what do you think the next logical step is?
Give him an extra game.
I think extra games will probably come to Southern.
Is he missing his first round playoff series?
Potentially, yes.
Notably, STFX and Acadia are probably going to play each other in the first round.
Unless Moncton catches them this weekend, which is possible since, both rosters are decimated at this point. Another thing that's...
Acadia will finish sixth no matter what.
Yeah.
Another thing, again, something that Victor was tweeting out here. In speaking with other sources from programs, I've been told other AUS teams were aware of the situation surrounding Sam Stadnicka years ago, and some schools informed their players if it was brought up that they would face team-initiated suspensions and or investigations.
Wait, so other AUS teams have independently warned people not to make comments of that nature towards Stadnicka? Then where the heck is Acadia in all of this? Whoa, actually, doubling back, how on earth is this inconsistent? Acadia said that there was nothing in their internal investigation that was consistent with the X's investigation, or with X's accusation. I get that there was no malicious intent behind Southern's statements, but, that's not in the same ballpark to you?
What do you, I'm not sure what you're trying to say here.
Okay, so I'm implying that knowing that, and also knowing that Acadia did an internal investigation and said that there was nothing consistent with X's accusations, that they made comments about that any comments were made about a sexual assault survivor, which is fundamentally true. Southern never said anything about a survivor, but Acadia didn't in any way, when they made their official statement defending their team, be like, hey, we have additional information about this, it's inconsistent, but like.
And you think Southern might have known?
No,
do you think they would have talked to the players directly?
I'm not implying that Southern would have known. I'm implying that Acadia saw fit to come out and make an official statement that said there's nothing that's consistent with X's accusation. Okay, there's nothing that matches X's accusation, but you're telling me you didn't know at the time that Southern had made a comment like that? Maybe he didn't know that the comment was malicious, but you know where X is coming from. Don't come out and say there's nothing consistent. There's nothing precise.
Yeah.
There's definitely something that's quote unquote consistent.
Is that maybe just a poorly wording statement?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not trying to play it off or be shady in any sort of way?
Maybe, but you pay people to make that statement.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
You are an academic institution with a bunch of money. You hire people to take care of that stuff.
You hire people who are taking degrees like myself to write statements like that to make sure that they communicate exactly what you're trying to say.
So I just think the shiftiness behind it's sort of unnecessary. But my thing is, if other teams were warning their players about this, where the heck was Acadia?
Yeah, it's true.
Maybe you don't think that it would come up, but we're talking about an AUS hockey season in which, in this current season, we have had a local journalist ask UPEI about a Humboldt survivor taking the bus. And now this brawl and the incident around Southern calling Studnicka a rapist, and X taking that as an intentional attack on a guy who has deep personal connections to a sexual assault survivor. This has been a wild season. How are you not more on top of that?
Yeah.
And if you're Acadia, why are you not admitting at least a little bit of fault?
Yeah. Well,
Peddle came out and said, I think my team was in the right, but fighting is not okay. Acadia's statement was just, it wasn't consistent with what X said.
Yeah. Well, that probably changed. We probably see another statement from Acadia at some point, unless they are intending the Southern statement to be...
Johnny, you think they're going to make another statement now that they've essentially gotten caught, red-handed?
Yeah.
It doesn't bother you on a fundamental level?
Oh, it does, but
Sean?
See, I haven't said much because I don't know if there's words to describe this, though. This whole thing, it all comes down to the fact that it's an issue that we're not educated on, and like he said in the statement, it shows that we need more education on this, and that's really what it comes down to. It's not a hockey issue. Also, it's not an issue that comes down to fighting. It just comes down to the fact that we can't go spewing stuff like that. Really. Also,
who knows? In that part, so of the actual investigation, did Southern again, this would just be speculative. How long until they knew specifically
I think
he said that
in Southern's statement, he mentions that they had been cooperating with the U.S. for a couple of days. So I'm assuming that Acadia knew. It might have been a case where Acadia didn't want to admit wrongdoing, because if you went back and looked at the footage, it was probably pretty obvious that it was Southern, and they didn't want to throw him under the bus until they had the right protections in place. I'm willing to give Acadia the benefit of the doubt. It just feels like their handling of the situation was infinitely worse than X's.
Well, maybe their whole thing about specifically attacking a sexual assault survivor, that's what they mean, and that's consistent with what Southern said. He wasn't intentionally attacking the known survivor and everything.
Yes, it's word for word verbatim, their statement's accurate.
Yeah, that it's wishy-washy and should have been clarified more. I don't think there's any as much
malicious intent,
as much malpractice as it may seem. Maybe
it feels more scummy than it probably is.
Yeah.
Also consider, maybe Acadia didn't know. Acadia Athletics, they might not have even known the comment was made. It might have been an inner circle thing, because with sports teams, they're very like closed off with what they share to the public, and even in Acadia athletics, like certain teams have an inner circle. So I don't know, maybe consider they had no clue.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the team could have been trying to handle it internally, and then once it broke, they would have had to get the I suppose there's layers to this that we might not be considering.
Well, there's also the fact that this is kind of blown up to be like a national story.
Well, I think this is going to sound really dumb, but Gardner's team being so dominant has made this a really awful AUS season because we keep focusing on incidents that shouldn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
All the focus on, well, the Humboldt Broncos player for UPEI doesn't take the bus. No kidding, really?
Yeah. Well,
and now this stuff. Well, not that this stuff wouldn't have been a national story anyway, because it would have been, but like this actually probably wouldn't have been any more than a regional story if it weren't for the fact that it blew up so big, because no one else is paying attention to anything else in college sports, because men's hockey, especially in Atlantic Canada right now, is boring.
Yeah.
Just dominated by like the top tier kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was one of the first things that went through my mind before, like, of course, we heard about the like the motives behind it and everything. Is that like, wow, there's a lot of great hockey that happens in the AUS and like U Sports, and this is the story that's gonna be remembered by the masses and everything for this season.
Yeah,
and it's crappy.
This is how this season is defined now. We have the return of UNB women's hockey. We have, a dominant St. Thomas team on the women's side, a UNB team that might go down as the most dominant single-season team in AUS history, especially if they win the AUS title this year.
Yeah.
And, we have a Humboldt Bronco survivor playing for UPEI. Huge story, even if it had, like, that negative spin early on in the year. But like that's a huge story. There's been so many good things about AUS hockey this year, and if you Google AUS hockey 3 years from now, this is going to be the first thing that pops up on your screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It's sad. It's an ugly incident, and like it might not even be over at this point because there's more investigation. I'm pretty sure.
There's more investigation, and then barring a complete collapse by X and Moncton winning out. So barring X losing their last two games and Moncton winning their last two games, we're going to see X and Acadia play in the first round.
Yeah,
that should be fun. Two depleted rosters, and it'll be interesting to see how they react.
Yeah, well, it might even be like ugly. Like it's like who knows?
Start ringing the gong.
Do you think it would though? Because like,
well, you would like to think that something like this with this like AUS pretty much throwing the book at both teams. And the motives behind it and the national terrible slew of press that has followed, you would assume that they would get back to playing hockey, but that's something I wouldn't bet on it.
There's going to be a lot of added information too, because if you don't think that first round playoff series is getting covered by a bunch of national outlets now,
there's intrigue.
Absolutely.
But at what point do you look at it and say, okay, like he essentially issued an apology and he's going to meet with
he's trying to Southern's trying to arrange a meeting with Studnicka.
He's trying to rectify the issue, and I don't know,
which I think is admirable.
Give him credit where credit's due. Like he's a stand-up guy. Like even though he made disgusting comments, he's still standing up and he's basically saying I messed up.
Yeah.
Admire that.
It would probably be like, I'm not sure how like quickly it could be arranged, but like maybe do that before an Xing Acadia series just to try and like cool it as much as it can.
Because they are both centers.
Yeah.
And the idea of them taking a face-off across the ice from each other with a second-round AUS playoff berth on the line, with them still having bad blood underneath the surface, is horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, well, you're going to know that, like, every disciplinary communication, every, like, AUS official that was involved in this investigation is going to be in the stands for every single one of those games.
Yep.
For sure. And I even got pulled, like, the UNB and St. FX game this weekend. I got switched to cover volleyball instead of the X game because Andy and everyone has to be down there just with the surrounding kind of circumstances and everything.
Because who knows how much other involvement there's going to be from media and third parties and everything else.
Or if, like, with, like, X having a depleted roster, if they get down again, like something else could spark up and everything like that. Like, teams don't really like to lose 7-1. So
Yeah, and it's
going to be more than that, by the way.
And this is the thing, and for the record, I'm hoping that I'm reading Studnicka wrong, and I don't want people who are listening to this to take this as me accusing him of something in his character, because I'm not. But even now that Southern's apologized, it doesn't matter. Because if it's an issue like this, even if Southern meant no offense, Studnicka's probably carrying some offense.
Mm-hmm.
It's just true.
Yeah.
With sensitive issues like this, you don't just let it go. It doesn't matter if the other person said, I'm sorry, my comments were off color, I didn't mean them this way, I'm wrong. You don't forgive that.
Yeah. There's a reason why the phrase "now it's personal"
Exists.
is like the defining climax moment of so many cinematic movies. Not to sensationalize this any further than it needs to, but when
it's true though. In sports, we hear it all the time. Well, now
Yeah.
it's personal. Well,
Yeah.
when it gets personal, it gets kind of dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's all that we're going to cover for that. We're going to take a really, really quick second to give you a quick breakdown for what's happening with your AUS teams this weekend. UNB men have locked up first place in the AUS men's hockey playoffs. They're not going to play in the first week of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
St. Thomas's women's team also clinched first in AUS. They're not going to play the first week of the playoffs. The only team that really has a weekend that matters is UNB. They played on Wednesday, lost a critical game to Moncton. They went 0-4 against the Aigle Bleu this year, which is a troubling number, especially when you look at the standings. So right now, things that kind of are relevant, St. Thomas is first. STFX has 2 games left. They're at 35 points. St. Mary's has 2 games left. They're at 33 points. Second bye spot still up in the air between those two teams. UNB is at 30. They can't catch St. Mary's. No one's going to catch St. Mary's or X. So 1, 2, 3 are going to be 1, 2, 3. We just don't know who 2 and 3 are yet. UPEI is at 27 points with 2 games left to play this year. Moncton is at 25 points with 1 game left to play. So if Moncton wins out and UPEI loses out, we could potentially see Moncton and UNB play in the first round.
Which is bad.
Which I think is the worst case scenario for UNB.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The other thing with the Reds is they still have to fight to maintain home ice. They have one last game this weekend against UPEI. It's the most critical one. They have to get at least a point from that game. If they don't, then their season is done. UPEI moves to within 1 point, and UPEI plays X on the last day of the season.
Who they have beaten.
And if UPEI beats X, not only does UNB is going to play UPEI, but they lose home ice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think for UNB, you play way better at home than you do on the road.
And the loss to Moncton this week was a critical one. It also virtually knocks Dalhousie out of the playoffs. Dalhousie technically still has a chance. They have to win their last 2 games. They need Moncton to lose their last game. Moncton's last game is against Mount A. So how likely Moncton is to lose the last game of the season is sort of questionable. And Dal plays SMU and Stew. Mind you, St. Thomas might be a little easier of a game because they literally have nothing to play for.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe they bench some of their stars, and especially if you're St. Thomas, right? You have 2 weeks to rest, and I don't know. Maybe you do see those players go out and try to win another game, add 1 to the total, but I don't know. You're still going to have a week and a half to rest up for your playoff series, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah. Also, Dalhousie's goalie got named Female Athlete of the Week for AUS to the surprise of literally no one.
That's a long time coming.
Yeah, because Petrica's been literally carrying them the entire way. I'm shocked that she's not going to be... I'm surprised she wasn't Athlete of the Month for January.
Yeah.
That's your AUS breakdown. We're not really going to cover the Moncton game right now. Long and the... TLDR for the game against Moncton on Wednesday.
What does that mean? I've had that sent to me so many times. I have no idea.
Too long, did not read.
Oh.
Yeah.
If an article is really long, you put TLDR at the bottom and just put a 2-sentence synopsis of what was above it so you don't have to read the entire thing.
God, Twitter needs so much of that.
I know, right?
That's such a great... Why does
that's
every
literally
tweet...
what Twitter is for.
Yeah. Too long, did not... Yeah, every tweet should be prefaced with that at the beginning.
Yeah, why does nobody use that?
Well, I think you're not supposed to use it on Twitter because Twitter is supposed to, in its basest form, be TLDR. You get 280 characters.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough, but
everything on Twitter should be TLDR.
Okay. I'm glad I know that. I don't know why, I don't know. I always miss. It takes me like 6 months to catch up on like the current slang of the day.
TLDR for the Moncton game, UNB didn't look very good.
Yeah, long story short.
They got outplayed by Villeneuve and Dubuque, which is what's happened in every other game this year. And once again, Bertome. Like, how many games is Kendra Woodland, who's arguably putting up an MVP-worthy season in net, going to get beaten by Audrey Bertome?
Oh, it's ridiculous. And the thing is, every time we've played Moncton, what was the most we scored against them in a game? Like 2?
2.
Max. So, you can't score on their goalie. They light you up.
Didn't UNB score 3 during the Villeneuve hat trick game?
Right. Yeah, that one was 6-3. For some reason, I thought that was Dalhousie. But yeah. So they scored 3, but allowed 6.
When they actually got offense going, they were just
got torched
under the weight of Villeneuve's offense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, she might win MVP this year.
Mm-hmm.
And if they stick in the playoffs, and even if they catch UPEI, she should. Like, no doubt.
All right, so we've got about just shy of 20 minutes to go. We've got a whole bunch of trades to talk about.
Yep.
A whole bunch of them. Do we want to do NBA or NHL first?
Do NHL first because they're kind of like less relevant than the NBA stuff is.
Pens and Panthers. Sean, do you have the breakdown?
Yep. So I don't have the draft picks that were swapped, but essentially the Panthers acquire Derek Brassard and Riley Sheehan for a 2019 second, a 2019 fourth, and Minnesota's 2020 fourth, I believe. So, and then the Penguins acquire Nick Bukestad and Jared McCann.
Did we not talk about this last episode?
No. Well, I think we avoided it because we didn't want to gloss over it.
Oh.
Yeah. So
we left some stuff on the table.
Okay. Right.
So really, to me, it's just the Panthers trying to generate more prospect and pick capital, and I think they're going to trade Brassard at the deadline again for more picks.
Bukestad.
And something notable is that Bukestad's the only positive Corsi player in this deal.
Yeah. There was a great quote from
he's the only player that generates more shots than allows.
Yep. And then he's going to play on Crosby's line.
Yeah. Dangle actually had a great quote from last week saying that, oh yeah, Nick Bukestad, that's definitely a player that the Penguins could make into a 30-goal scorer.
It really is.
Or a 25-goal scorer or something like that. So.
Oh, you don't get to play with Crosby. You get to play with Malkin instead.
It feels like Bukestad hasn't hit his ceiling, which is sort of a shame.
No.
Yeah. You haven't played on the Penguins yet.
And again, like this season and at the end of last year, he was at his most effective when he played with Trocheck and Barkov. So give him a good center. You never know. And honestly, I don't think anyone's going to argue Crosby and Malkin are better than Trocheck and Barkov.
Baudin McCormick, that's the Sens minor league deal, right?
Yeah, I thought this one was interesting because Baudin, he had 18 points in 20 ECHL playoff games last season.
Okay.
So, and really, like a lot of like different prospect websites project him at a 55-point ceiling.
Like in the A?
No, in the NHL. As a middle six forward.
Really? But he's playing the ECHL.
No, well, he's in the AHL now. Like he played
so did the Sens get him or did they give him up?
They got him.
And he's the one you were telling me, was he the one who used to play for Cape Breton?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting because they basically gave a bunch of nothing. Max McCormick, he's 27 years
got
old.
A middle six forward?
Yeah. It's a good move.
Like, I don't want to give credit to the Senators, but
it's not bad. And he has a strong two-way game, so I don't think it's a bad move at all. You could even see him up there this season.
And last but not least, he who scares cancer away but with naught but a sneer, Brian Boyle, gets traded.
Yeah, to Nashville.
Yep.
That's a good pickup for Nashville.
Getting Old Man a cup.
So now down the middle, Nashville.
It'd be Boyle's second, right? Because he has one.
Who does he have one with?
Does Brian Boyle have a Stanley Cup?
No, he has a Cup Finals appearance.
Yeah, because he went to the Cup Finals with the Lightning.
Yeah.
And they lost to Chicago.
But, so, like, I mean, he's going to be buried behind Johansson, Turris, and Benino.
But still, like Brian Boyle's a good fourth-line center. Like, you're basically sticking him in the same role the Leafs did when they had him. So
yeah, pretty much. You need a face-off one, throw him out there.
What do they give up?
He doesn't have to be a fourth-line center. He can be like a 9-12 guy. You can play him on your third line if you want to. Play him as a power forward. Boyle's older, but it's not like he doesn't have the go to grind a guy out on the boards and make a play.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they gave up a 2019 second-round pick. So
That's better than what the Leafs did.
yeah, so
Not to mention, what's Nashville's like second round pick in 2019 going to be? Like 60th overall?
It's basically going to be
Maybe.
a third-round pick.
yeah, on like an average 3rd round pick.
We're talking like late 50s. Maybe if they make the Cup final, like legitimately 61.
60, 61.
62.
If they win at 60.
If they, well,
Yeah.
I bet that's what they're betting on.
Yeah.
Like that. Well, what are you striving for at this point, Nashville? Like, get a cup.
We have given you an early 3rd round pick for Brian Boyle. I think that's actually, like, some people might argue that's overpaying for Boyle slightly, but I think if you're Nashville, you're fine with that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I even think you could see him lock some power play minutes.
Because I think Nashville's realizing that their window's starting to close too. Because their defense is stacked, but they can't rely on, like, you have to remember, this is a team where, like, one of your primary pieces is it's still Kyle Turris, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I'm Nashville, I'm looking at like your longtime rivals in San Jose.
Yeah,
How that window is like.
Oh yeah, and I think Nashville also has to be concerned with the last time we had an expansion, they had to give up James Neal. There's another expansion draft coming in a year or two, and that team is still loaded. Like, for you to keep your core, for you to keep Subban, Ellis, Yossi, Ekholm, you have to take the 8 skaters, 1 goalie route. That means you have to leave a second line forward open.
And Yossi is up next year, and he could make 9-10 million. I think he could.
Yossi's got to be a double-digit player, right?
Easily.
Yeah.
I could see it.
There's no one that's exempt from their core?
I don't think so.
No.
Not by then.
It's an older core.
Right.
Not by then. I think they had a couple guys who were exempt for this one and still had to give
Maybe
up Neal.
Tolvanen.
I think
Their prize prospect.
But, like, you have to remember, there was talk about whether or not they were going to give up Arvidsson last time.
That's true.
If you're going to have to give up Arvidsson in 2 years for free to Seattle, you're winning a cup now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really have to. And
they should be.
Yeah.
Like, it should be cup or bust for them at this point.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for NHL.
That is
trade.
the NHL.
Oh, I guess do we want to talk about Matthews' contract?
Yeah, we'll talk
Quick
about that now.
before-
So
Okay.
Matthews gets in for 11.83 over 5 years. I think if you're a Leafs fan, you're fine with the money. Maybe not so happy about the term. You probably wish it was 8.
I'm over the moon
Yes.
with the term, if I'm being honest.
Here's the thing you got to consider. Like, I understand Leafs fans are freaking out, even though I think, like, hey, we just locked up. We have, like, one more piece to go before
You
we
locked up a top 10 player in the NHL for less than max.
Yeah, and also, like, you're one piece away from locking up the best core you have ever had in franchise history. You should be happy. Now, term 5 years, sure, you would rather 8. But I think this is going to be a trend, and I saw multiple people talking about this, including Freeds, is this is going to be a trend, like when Rantanen's contract is up. With the cap,
He is going to get paid.
Yes.
He could hit 115.
With the cap speculating to go up and, like, just how, like, the financial prosperity of the NHL, it's possibility, like, that max could go up in a couple of years. If the cap's going up, they don't want to short term the money, which, hey, it might not benefit the Leafs' financial situation, but I gotta say it's good. Like, the players should make the money that they're worth at that time.
I talked about this a little bit before we went on the air too, but usually your window when you have a lot of young talent is in the first couple of years after you sign their contracts, because then you end up in this, like, weird contraction space where you don't have enough cap space to make a move to adjust to keep yourself contending if you can't complete it with the core. But the benefit to a 5-year contract is you know where Matthews is going to stand at the point where a lot of other teams are trying to juggle their roster.
Yeah. The thing about that, though, is like when those contracts are kicking in, like, after, like, the prime, like, the prime is a lot earlier, especially for forwards right now. Like, that's why you see, like, younger players getting these big deals right out of their ELC. There's literally no, like, I wouldn't even call this a bridge deal or anything like that. No, this is
5 years, not a bridge deal.
Yeah.
No.
If it was 2 or 3, I'd say it was. But this is Matthews committing to the team without saying you own me for life.
Yeah.
Because the last guy who said pay me big money and you own me for life got stuck in an Oilers jersey.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think this is a lot different. Like, we look at, like, the Blackhawks, for example, how pretty much, like, as soon as all those big contract extensions after they won the cups, they immediately started to tank down. But, like, hey, at least you won the cups and everything like that. I think
That's true.
I think this is a good way where, like, you get those dollars committed, and like it doesn't necessarily mean at the end of the 5 years that you lose all of Nylander. Now the fact that Nylander and Matthews will be coming up at the same time will be concerning, but that's 5 years from now. There was a great tweet like 5 years ago. You know what tweet TheLeafsNation.com posted?
Which
it was Dave Bolin taking the cup back home to
my
Monaco.
God.
And it was right after the Leafs signed him afterwards, and now he's going to bring the same to Toronto the next season.
Oh, man.
So it's a long time. Like 5 years is still plenty of time. That's 6 playoff runs where you're going to have Marner, Nylander, Matthews, Tavares, because like Marner's going to get
And
at least
you could
that.
have Marleau if you wanted him.
Realistically,
if you want him.
And
Yeah. You're going to have him for at least 2 more.
I don't think we
because-
should be even worried about the term, though, because outside of John Tavares, and like he might have broke down a wall, but players like this don't hit free agency. They get locked up long in advance, and I'm willing to bet. July 1st in 2023, I bet they lock up Matthews to an 8-year extension.
Maybe another 5.
Maybe another 5.
Yeah.
Maybe he goes max.
Sure.
Who knows? But I don't think he hits free agency.
7 minutes, NBA trade deadline was yesterday. Wow, it was pretty good. I'm going to start with the only trade that mattered to me specifically, which was that the Mavericks traded Harrison Barnes to Sacramento Kings for Zach Randolph and Justin Jackson after their Kristaps Porzingis blockbuster that we covered on Monday. Did the Mavericks go from being a sub-500 team to a contender?
Yeah.
Does that happen in the NBA anymore?
I think it can.
I don't think I've ever seen a team that is going, because they were 23 and 27 before the Porzingis trade. Would you be shocked if they won a title?
What, like the big
this
prize?
year? Yeah.
I kind of would be. It's kind of a young team that like they're trying to get younger, and I see what they're trying to do. I just don't see them getting past Golden State,
Well, I mean, okay, sure.
who like admittedly have looked human this year.
But I mean, like adding Randolph, adding Porzingis, obviously having Doncic and everything.
It makes the conversation less crazy.
Yeah. Like if you said that maybe 3 weeks ago, I would have called you crazy.
And I mean, like, they still have Dirk.
Yeah, and they still have Dirk.
Oh, is Dirk Nowitzki still playing? I thought he retired for some reason.
Nope, he did not. In fact, he's an NBA All-Star.
How old is he?
He's pretty old.
Like 40 something?
He's exactly 40.
Exactly 40.
He turned 40 in June. He's almost 41.
Yeah. Does he have term left on his contract?
I don't know if this is his last year.
I think he's been signing like string of like 1-year deals.
Yeah.
Either way, he's going to play until Dallas tells him to stop.
He can still play.
Because he
or
can
his
still,
knees.
He can
One or the
still
other.
shoot. He still his knees tell him to stop.
Yeah. He
That's
had
fair.
a string of knee injuries, did he not?
But I mean, like, he hasn't a string of knee injuries. It's just that he's a basketball player over time. Your knees wear down.
Yeah,
It's the body part you use the most. But like Doncic, Nowitzki, Barnes, Porzingis, Max Kleiber, like this is a legitimate team now. Whereas before they were, a sub 500 team that was just going to squeak into the playoffs.
Yeah. But yeah, no. To your question, I wouldn't be surprised if they won the title, but they have to get past Houston and Golden State.
The hill's uphill.
Oh,
it's
without a doubt.
Talking about uphills, the Raptors trade. Do you have it there?
I do.
Go for it.
Yeah, so the Raptors receive center Marc Gasol from the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies receive Jonas Valanciunas, DeLon Wright, forward CJ Miles, and a 2024 second-round pick.
Oh, no more CJ's PJs?
No, sadly.
That commercial's still going to air for the rest of the season, though.
Oh, 100.
It better.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Tell me why I shouldn't be cynical. This is them admitting that Serge Ibaka wasn't the answer.
I don't know if it's them. Like, you can never have enough depth, especially when you're going to have to face Milwaukee, who's
It's
just
not
destroyed
depth. Gasol's a starter.
Well,
If you go and look at his career stat line on average, his stat lines line up pretty favorably with Ibaka, except that he's got slightly more assists and he averages 5 points more a game than Serge Ibaka. That is you going out to get a player to play the role you wanted Serge Ibaka to play.
so now, like, devil's advocate here, the Raptors traded for a slightly better Jonas Valanciunas and an older Valanciunas, who I'm pretty sure is a free agent at the end of the year, and you gave up like actual like. I think 26-year-old Jonas Valanciunas. So really, like, you're paying for a bit of an upgrade, and you're giving up all sorts of crap for it.
Again, it's a cynical thing for me.
No, I understand.
If they go to the playoffs and they get conked out by Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks, and Kawhi ditches, and then Gasol doesn't re-sign, you've given up DeRozan, Valanciunas, and most of your future to leave you with a roster that's Lowry, Siakam, and everybody else.
Yeah.
And Casey. Don't forget you got like Casey is out of town too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, and one notable thing is that
You get to keep Green.
yeah, and Kyle Lowry is up after next season, so he's going to command some money. But again, if all these contracts are off the books, then you can afford to pay him.
It's not about whether or not you want to re-sign Lowry. Does Lowry want to re-sign in a team where you've traded away the entire core that you built up with Lowry to try to win a title? Like, you've sold all of your future promise for like one window.
Let alone all of Lowry's friends.
If you botch this window, you're screwed.
So
Yeah.
if you don't win this year, you're probably screwed.
Well,
You either need to win this year or you need to convince Gasol, maybe not Gasol, maybe letting Gasol walk is fine, but you need to at least convince Leonard to stay.
yeah.
And I have not seen anything through 60 games of the season or so that would convince me that the Raptors are going to keep him.
No. Well, and we see all these reports like he just bought a house in San Diego. I don't look into that.
I keep saying that's not news. That's not
No,
news,
it's not.
That's not news. But every single day we hear, I don't want to talk about contract till the offseason. I don't want to talk about contract. I don't want to talk
That's
about
code for I'm not resigning.
Yeah, it's that makes the I bought a house in California news.
Yeah, it'll magnify if they go out in the second round or whenever they play Milwaukee.
Yep.
It'll be the third
Third.
because the Raps are definitely finishing second.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just what it comes down to. And can you beat Milwaukee? Can you buck the trend?
Can you beat Milwaukee with Mirotic, who they just added?
Yeah, who they just added, who's going to shred you from the 3-point line. Like you got better, but so did everyone else.
You get, like, we have a minute and a half left, but you were all like, well, we picked up Marc Gasol. Marc Gasol is a marginal improvement over your current roster. When the Sixers loaded up, the Bucks loaded up. You have said, look at the improvements we've made. You get one shot now.
Yeah.
If you miss and Kawhi walks, double if they both walk. If Kawhi and Gasol walk, assuming Gasol doesn't have term, I don't think he does.
I'll double check.
Double check. He might have one more year, which makes this trade a little more palatable. But if Kawhi, if you don't get there and Kawhi walks, you've given up DeRozan, Valanciunas, and a bunch of your future for one shot that you couldn't nail.
Free agent 2020.
And you
So next
possibly
year.
Yeah, so Gasol has one more.
Yeah.
That's a little more palatable. You at least get to lock up your power forward center's position because you have Ibaka, you have Gasol.
Yeah.
You have Siakam playing one forward position, you have Lowry. But the linchpin to making that entire roster work the way you have it built now is Kawhi. If Kawhi walks, there is no player of his caliber that you are going to get.
No, and well, he's top 5. Yeah. He's a top 5 player in the league.
You gave up the 8th or 9th best player in the NBA to get the 5th best player in the NBA for one season. If Leonard walks and you've gambled, they've gambled the entire future of a now just burgeoning Raptors franchise on this one playoff run.
Should they just have a jersey of like eggs in a basket?
Yeah.
Because
that's what it is.
That's the embodiment of this.
I can never pronounce his name. GM for the Raptors.
Masai Ujiri.
Yes, Masai Ujiri. He's gonna. If they blow this, people are gonna burn epitaphs of the guy.
But you know what? Like, to conclude, it's a risk worth taking though, because if you have the window, you have to go for it. You have to go for it because, like we say, championship or bust.
LeBron left your conference, and you're still the second best team in your conference.
Well, granted, it's to the emergence of Antetokounmpo, but he's just another LeBron. He is going to stick around in the Raptors' nightmares forever, and they're going to lose, and it's going to suck.
Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning into Overtime Radio on CHSR 97.9 FM and our vidcast replays on YouTube. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on all social media at Overtime CHSR. You can also email us, overtimechsr@gmail.com. If you have any questions about anything that we've said, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We would love to hear from you. We will see you Monday. At 2 o'clock, we're pre-recording a special episode. Sunday night, it's going to be our NASCAR season preview with our NASCAR expert, Matthew Marr, in studio. We're recording it Sunday evening, but you guys will hear it Monday afternoon. Thanks for tuning in.